Greetings, nightmare investigators. Today I'm taking you on a new journey through the curiosities of Dylan Dog, one for each issue, from number 31 to 40. Let's dive straight into the unknown. 31. In Grand Guignol, Dylan Dog enters a theater where the boundary between fiction and reality completely dissolves. The title is a direct homage to the famous Theatre du Grand Guignol in Paris, renowned for its violent and explicit performances. In this issue, the theatrical structure becomes a true stage of horror. According to some fan interpretations, actors and victims swap roles, and the stage itself turns into a living entity, capable of deceiving and terrifying. It is a reflection on theater, on comics themselves, and on the reader-spectator, who witnesses fear unfolding on stage. An issue that not only frightens, but stages the very essence of horror, the theater of the soul, where the nightmare truly comes to life. 32. In Obsession, Groucho is not just the comic sidekick, he becomes the rational counterpoint to the mental chaos surrounding Dylan. As the investigator slips into doubt and emotional exhaustion, Groucho maintains an oddly cold clarity, even providing decisive insights for solving the case in key scenes. On fan forums, many interpret this role reversal as a symbolic message, irony as the only defense against madness, or even as a sign that Groucho represents Dylan's conscious side, the part of him still anchored to reality. It is a subtle, but powerful detail that makes the issue more psychological than horrific, and one that many consider among the finest examples of how Sclavai plays with the roles of his characters. 33. In Jekyll, Sclavai crafts a story that is a true tribute to Gothic literature and its masters. The most obvious reference is, of course, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson, from which the issue takes its title and its theme of duality. On several Dylan Dog forums and blogs, fans have noted that the dark atmosphere, the obsession with guilt, and the presence of a raven evoke the poetic imagery of Edgar Allan Poe, particularly his famous poem The Raven. There is no official confirmation from Sclavai or Bonelli, but the idea that Jekyll merges Stevenson's legacy with Poe's suggestions is one of the most beloved interpretations within the community. So much so that many consider this issue a love letter to the entire 19th century Gothic tradition. 34. This issue contains a clear homage to the cult film A Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984. Marna Saray's appearance closely resembles the film's iconic villain, and on page 51 a child with unsettling features recites a nursery rhyme that unmistakably recalls the one from the movie. The cinematic reference goes beyond appearance. The tension and atmosphere, in which terror slowly seeps into the story, create a direct bridge between comics and 1980s horror, giving readers an intense and immersive experience where every scene amplifies the sense of unease and suspense typical of Dylan Dog. 35. In The Cliff of Ghosts, we find a setting that seems to come straight out of a vintage horror film: two elderly sisters trapped in an isolated villa on a cliff, and a monstrous giant roaming the night. This scenario strongly recalls Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, directed by Robert Aldrich, which in the comic becomes the name of the Doctor. Many fans note how the two sisters embody female psychological archetypes, and how the setting mirrors the tragic power games between Jane and Blanche in the film. The sisters in the movie are played by Betty Davis and Joan Crawford, and the sisters in the comic bear the very same names, making the homage unmistakable. In this way, the story is not just basic horror, but a grotesque narrative design that reflects on guilt, aging, desire, and toxic relationships. The cinematic reference is not a simple visual tribute, but a thematic framework that gives the issue a depth many fans regard as one of the most intense moments in the series. 36. In A Midsummer Night's Nightmare, Dylan Dog makes use of what he calls his fifth sense and a half, an ability to perceive invisible presences and dangers. In this issue, this faculty is shown more clearly, with Dylan anticipating threats and anomalies, turning suspense into palpable tension. Although the series had hinted at this sensitivity in other stories, here it emerges with clarity, highlighting the uniqueness of the nightmare investigator and his constant journey between reality and terror. 37. Some fans have noticed that the opening pages of The Tiger's Dream seem inspired by the atmosphere of A Clockwork Orange: violent gangs, ritualized gestures, and a city that becomes a stage for terror. The visual style of these scenes, from the coordinated movements of the characters to the urban tension, clearly recalls the film, turning the opening of the issue into an urban nightmare that immediately grips the reader. This influence helps make the issue particularly intense, conveying from the very first pages a sense of anguish and the almost manic control of violence over the city. 38. In this issue, Fans have pointed out a detail that makes the reading experience even more intense. Dylan Dog moves through a city shrouded in fog, where every shadow seems to conceal an imminent danger. The dense, oppressive urban atmosphere recalls classic Gothic films such as Dracula and Frankenstein, with narrow alleys, flickering lights, and indistinct figures watching Dylan from afar. This simple element heightens the story's tension, turning the city into a true character, alive and unsettling, guiding the reader through an urban nightmare suspended between reality and terror. 39. Fans have noted a particularly claustrophobic setting that recalls the corridors and labyrinthine rooms of Suspiria, Dario Argento's 1977 film. Narrow hallways and intricate rooms seem to close in on the characters, while light and shadow play a fundamental role in creating depth and tension. The threatening figures, often depicted in theatrical or unsettling poses, evoke the macabre choreography typical of 70s Italian horror cinema, transforming the space into a true psychological labyrinth. 40. In It Happened Tomorrow, Dylan Dog receives a newspaper that reports events that have yet to occur, and the story plays with time as a genuine enigma. The reference to the 1944 film It Happened Tomorrow emerges in the narrative structure. In the movie, a journalist receives news from the future and must confront the destiny awaiting him amid temporal paradoxes and inevitable consequences. Likewise, in the comic, tomorrow enters the present, turning time itself into an unsettling element. Each page increases the tension. Knowing in advance what will happen makes every choice Dylan faces charged with anxiety, creating a perfect balance of horror, metaphysical thriller, and temporal nightmare. Fate knocks at the door before Dylan can face it, and the reader feels the chill of an unavoidable future. Bonus. In issue 40, It Happened Tomorrow, Chico Marx, brother of the famous comedian Groucho Marx, appears as Groucho's bookmaker within the story. This panel, particularly dear to Sclaveye, recreates a scene from the 1937 film A Day at the Races by Sam Wood, starring the Marx brothers themselves. This inclusion adds a meta-artistic touch to the comic. The sidekick Groucho interacts with a character who takes on the likeness of Chico Marx, creating a bridge between satire, film history, and comic book fiction. A perfect detail for those who love cross-references between pop culture, comedy, and the universe of Dylan Dog. We've explored one curiosity for each issue from 31 to 40. In the next episode, we'll continue with 10 more curiosities, from issues 41 to 50. The nightmare is not over yet. See you in the next episode.